Goeiedag en welkom. My name is Amareiske and today in episode 5 of Neurons, I will be talking about how I recognize my autistic meltdowns. A lot of people have heard or seen the examples of meltdowns in which children go down into a temper tantrum or something like, and there is adults to whom this happens as well, but for me, this has never been the case. My meltdowns almost always were the complete opposite of this kind of screaming, crying. Instead of that, I went inside of my head, inside of myself, became very, very quiet, and just went somewhere by myself if I could. So let's get started in point 1 through 6 of how I recognize my meltdowns. And it has not only to do with stuff that happens beforehand, because I will be talking about how I recognize when it starts or the differences I notice, but also something that might happen afterwards that not a lot of people might think about. One is, and I will use an example from when I go to festivals to meet foreign friends of mine. One is, I get extremely way more tired all of a sudden than would be normal if you're like having had a travel somewhere by train or whatever. And if you have been talking to some people, instead of just growing slowly more and more tired, that happens, and then all of a sudden I am way more tired. That is usually signal 1, but I also usually ignore it because if I have a great time with friends, I want to have a great time with friends. I'm not going away just because I'm tired. I have been tired so much in my life that extreme intense tiredness, I usually become a little bit more quiet and more listening and perceiving instead of engaging into like conversation and stuff. But I will be there, and if someone asks something to me or offers me a drink or something, I will just happily go along and have a great time until number 2 happens. Then I should actually go and look for a place I can sit or be on my own, at least for a while, and that is, I grow tense. Usually in the beginning when this happens, I don't necessarily feel it directly, I feel it after a while. But this can be perceived also by very perceptive friends who have a lot of feeling for what it looks like when someone is relaxed and when someone starts to get tensed up a little bit. I have such friends, or at least one with whom I was, and I explained to him that if that happens, he needs to get me out of there to prevent an actual meltdown from happening, because that is one of the first signs that a meltdown is upcoming. So, as I described it here, is I grow tense. This is something I don't only feel, but something perceptive people notice as well. When caught on time, they can help calm me down and minimize the after effects, because if it is not caught on time, and I personally, if I'm on my own, I still usually ignore this because I usually still have a great time at that moment. So why would I stop having a great time because I get a little bit tense? Especially if I don't notice it directly myself all the time. But then it goes on to point 3, which is not always directly, but like either slowly a headache starts coming up, or I start seeing what people with migraines call auras, which is usually a sign migraine is oncoming. It could be I get migraines, or it could be something similar but not the same. Like, they are either white rings that look a little bit like soap bubbles, or more like flashes of colored light, usually brown, yellow, blue. But I think it might look a little bit different for every person who has a migraine. But I start seeing those things as well. And yeah, usually if a headache started before, or if this happens, either I grow extremely tired and want to sleep directly, or a headache comes up pretty quickly afterwards. Sometimes, or not always, like sometimes it's just a couple of days later because I get my rest in time and I can enjoy like festival and friends and such for a couple of days because it is like chill enough. Those people have a chill vibe around them, so that does not cause any more stress. So if I sleep in time, I get rested and a meltdown does not happen. So that's a tip. If you see someone who is more into themselves, if they grow tense, or if you can see that they get tired all of a sudden and you know they have autism, maybe pull them away and have like either a private walk or bring them to some place quiet. Point 4 was that headaches can come up but don't need to after I see the auras, or even sometimes before. And then point 5 is I am so tired, the only thing I want to do is sleep. Sometimes I already have a headache, or I can just feel it's coming, like that happens. And that is when the actual meltdown happens. If the only thing I can do is either sit and stare apathically ahead of myself, or the only thing I want to do is sleep and be in like a semi-dark or very dark room. And I'm sensitive to anything or everything you can think of, including someone whispering or just a sound further away from me. Like, I can't focus anymore on speaking or listening to people. I, with a lot of practice, have learned to speak 4 languages. But in such a moment, I am not able to speak any languages at all. Like, not comprehensively enough to form complex sentences, at least. Like, I could understand and speak simple stuff, specifically in my native languages, but nothing really more than that. So it's best then to go to sleep, and usually I do. But depending on how much I stretched my brain and myself to stay in contact with other people and to have that great time, I might or might not end up with extremely severe headaches, or maybe they are migraines, I don't know, but the next day for a couple of days. And if that is not necessarily directly the case, it might happen when I come back home and last for 2 or 3 days. And after a week, I'm not that tired anymore than I was when I came home. But like, it takes up to a week to recover and gain all my energy back sometimes. So that's what I have to take into account. So in a short summary, 1, how I recognize my meltdowns. Point 1 is I grow exponentially more tired all of a sudden instead of that it goes slowly. Point 2 is I grow tense, and usually it's perceived earlier by perceptive people that are not me, and then I feel it. 3 is either headaches or a very heavy head start coming, or I see auras, and then part 4 is headaches can start coming up, or I see the auras. Like 3 and 4 can be switched around, and then 5, I'm so tired I can't focus anymore and all I just want to do is sleep. And then either I do or don't do it. But point 6 would be migraines or extremely severe headaches that can take up to 3 days to go away. And the only thing that truly helps is being in a room as quiet as possible with as small of an amount of people around me as possible. And I think it goes the same for a lot of autistic people, but it's sometimes hard to express yourself. So I'll leave it at this for now. If you thought it was useful or liked or found the video interesting in some way, give it a thumbs up, maybe subscribe, follow me or send me a message on Twitter, link in the or handle in the description. Leave a comment with a question or maybe topics for next time. And all I can say now is thank you for watching and tot de keer!